everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to continue our examination of the Legend of Kamui, the great ninja manga by Sanpei Shirato. We're going to be looking at numbers 18 through 22. Get ready for a lot of fun and excitement. Now, let's start. Number 18. This is the last of the painted covers by Sanpei Shirato, which I assume were made for Kamui collections in Japan. And pretty nice, but once again, nothing to do with the contents of this comic. So here, included in this issue is the prologue and part 1 of Kusanagi, which is a part of the Sword Wind, and it's part of chapter 3. So in the prologue, Utsuse has finally tracked down Kamui, the man who killed his foster father, Fudo. And they're chatting a little before their showdown. I love this panel here, how Utsuse's dialogue looks like a sound effect to show the intensity of it. He's saying, "They say you fed him to the sharks. Why?" And of course, Kamui's all calm and collected. He's just like, we ninjas are betrayers. He betrayed us, the betrayers. So the showdown begins. And this is once again, some really great action fight scenes. This one is very different than most of the ones in this comic, though, because pretty soon Kamui's getting his ass beat. He is outclassed for once. In every issue of this, we've seen Kamui take on like 50 guys, kick their asses. Now it looks like he's finally been his match, or more than his match. Utsuse has this, his sword style, he basically moves with the speed of the wind. So it's almost like a hummingbird's wings. He can't even see him. Kamui's just like, how can I fight this guy? I can't even see him. I love this wicked speed line action going on. This panel's great too. They're basically ricocheting off of each other. But on every pass, Kamui's getting wounded. And he's not touching Utsuse. And it looks like Kamui can barely stand here. He's bleeding out of his mouth. And Utsuse's going in for the kill. And I don't know if it's intentional or he just passed out or half passed out, but Kamui falls off this cliff. And while he's falling, though, I guess he's not down for the count, he takes his ninja chain, throws it up, and it wraps around Utsuse's neck. He goes falling with Kamui. And then he grabs a line and throws it around this tree branch. But even though Kamui looks like he's unconscious, the weight of Kamui is dragging Utsuse down and choking him to death. And that's how we end the fight. Because now we go to part 1, and it's like a day or two later. Kind of a weird way to end it. Love this panel. Just more of that beautiful landscape drawing by Shirato. And we see that guy, the guy who has the mushroom helmet. This is Utsuse's handler, basically, for the ninjas. He gives them orders, gives them information, pops up every now and then. It's like he's always keeping an eye on Utsuse. And he finds him standing on this cliff. And Utsuse is having a crisis of conscience, or not conscience, just he's befuddled by his actions. He's like, I totally had him. Why did I snare that tree? I guess with his crazy ninja techniques, he claims that I should have just fallen with him and then I could have killed him, which I don't know how. I mean, it seems like he would plummet to his death as well, but instead he panicked and threw that line around the tree branch, which of course, started strangling him because Kamui's weight was still holding onto that chain, or it was wrapped around his wrist. He says, I was scared. I wanted to live. And then all of a sudden, these wild dogs, while he was lost in thought, these wild dogs have been surrounding him on this cliff. And most people, that would be terrifying, but not Utsuse. He's totally like, come on, you fucking dogs, I'm gonna kick your ass. And that he does. Just bashing in their heads with his staff. Man, look at this. And he makes short work of these guys. But this is just a really great action scene. And then he goes right back to thinking. She's like, yeah, that was a little interruption. He thinks to himself, they say that a man becomes weaker when he has something to lose. What is it that I fear to lose? And then I don't know exactly what he's doing here. It looks like he's bungee jumping. But I don't think they had rubber back then. So he's jumping off of this huge tree, with the rope tied around his feet. And he's plummeting. And then the ropes catch him just as he's near the water. And he slashes into the water with his sword and chops this fish in half. So I guess he's just refining his technique or honing it. And he realizes that it's his sword technique. That's what he fears, losing that. Because when you got nothing to lose. And then he does the bungee thing again. This time chopping a leaf in half. And he ends up in the water this time. Oh, I'm sorry. I think he took the ropes off. Yeah. He's just diving into the water. And then he sees a message floating in the stream from his handler. And it basically says, Kamui went downriver. So Tsuse leaps through the trees and continues his pursuit of Kamui. I mean, look at this stuff. He's a total superhero. All these ninjas, they're like, it's just not even human. So there's this point in the river, there was a bridge there, but I guess it was destroyed by something. So everyone has to trudge through the river to get to the other side. And we see Utsuse's one of them. And all of a sudden he feels someone kind of clinging to his legs. It's this little kid. And he says, what are you doing, boy? And he's like, I'm not playing. This is a very intense little kid. Utsuse takes a shine to him, says, get up on my back. Gives him a little ride across the river. And the kid just runs away. And he gets another message from another ninja. Wait at Higase, Castletown. So he heads over to Higase. So now we're in that Castletown. And we see that little kid. And he's standing in the middle of the street. These three swordsmen approach. And it's almost like he's confronting them. It's kind of cute. Him looking all angry. And these guys are just like, what a strange kid. What a weirdo. So he kind of has this, looks like he's defeated. But then he sees a samurai. And he runs and gets in the middle of his path. And then all of a sudden, he starts doing a sword technique. This little kid. And the samurai's kind of prodding him on. He's like, and next? And next? And in the crowd, we see Utsuse. And he says, that sword form, it's... And... ... So we'll find out soon enough. In number 19. And so now as we see the covers are just these loose sketches by Shirato. I didn't know where these are from. And then they color them. I assume Eclipse colored them. I don't think Shirato did. Very sketchy. So now we have part 2 of Kusanagi. So we continue where we left off. The kid's showing off his technique. And it's kind of funny, his technique. He basically just falls on his face. But it's all for a purpose. He cuts at his ankle. I mean, he's not trying to hurt him. He's just showing him that he could have chopped off his ankle if he had a sword. The samurai says, and after that? And the kid says, I only know it this far. That's all I know. So the samurai takes a liking to the kid and buys him some lunch. And he says, why did you do that? The kid says, I'm looking for my father. The samurai says, is that the sword form your father used? He says, actually, my mother taught me. My father took off after I was born. So my mother figured you won't be able to recognize your father. You've never seen him. But you can recognize the sword technique, which I will show you so you can recognize it. And then his mother died. That was like a year ago. And on her deathbed, she basically says, I really want you to meet your father, if only for a moment. And he vows to do that. The samurai says, I too am bound by the discipline of the sword. Should I encounter a man using such a technique, I will remember you. And then we see that Utsuse's been listening on the whole conversation. So the samurai has to go to Edo. His lord has ordered him to come to the capital. And he gets on a boat and takes off. The kid looks kind of sad. I think he really liked that guy. So the samurai, whose name is Lord Tamura, he makes it to the Han, and these guys are waiting for him from the Lord, the daimyo. And they say, we're going to escort you. You've got these communiques and these secret papers, secret plans, so we'll escort you to the castle. On the way to the castle, this guy just pops up. He's like a Ronin. And he just says bluntly to them, let me see the letter from the Kunigaro. That's the chief retainer at the Han. They're like, what? What are you, fucking nuts? You're pretty bold. If you want the letter, you can take it. And they all pull their swords out. And they have no idea what they're in for. Because this guy is a bad motherfucker. And he just slices through them like a sift through wheat. But we see that he does the falling on his face thing that the little kid does. And Lord Tamura recognizes, he says, that form, this is the guy. So this is, basically this is called the grass cutter technique. And it's almost like the centipede in Five Deadly Venoms. It's all about like crawling on the ground and, chopping your enemy's foot off, hacking at their ankles. Kind of interesting technique. He's just rolling around on the ground. And it works. He's kicking the shit out of these guys. Chopping off most of their feet. So Lord Tamura is the last man standing. And he, basically enters into battle with this nameless samurai. And he loses. And his last thought is, the boy. Because he's not going to be able to tell the kid that he found his father. So he finds the secret papers. And he says, that damn Kunigaro. the retainer of the Han, he deceived us. And he walks off. Then we see a messenger riding into the capital. And he goes up to the shogun and he says, "Sir, it's a peasant rebellion." And everyone starts freaking out. We see all the townspeople, all the merchants are shuttering up their shops. Everyone's just hightailing it out of town with all their possessions, or the few possessions they can carry. It's just a total panic. I guess this is a thing in Japan. Every generation, that'd be a huge peasant rebellion. Because, they treated the peasants like shit a lot of the times. And sometimes the peasants would just get fed up. And they couldn't take it anymore. So we see this peasant army just descending upon this town. And they're just smashing everything, lighting stuff on fire, burning the city to the ground. So the little kid is walking around this town. It's kind of abandoned, at least the part he's in. The peasants haven't got to it yet. And he's crossing this bridge, and all of a sudden the peasants are coming across the bridge, and they are just like a stampede of buffalo. This kid's not gonna survive this. Oh, I forgot to mention, he also picked up this puppy, this stray puppy. So he's just about to get trampled. And then all of a sudden, just like the Flash, speaking of superheroes, just like whoosh, and it's Utsuse. He basically leapt in so fast nobody could see him, and he grabbed Koyota. That's the kid's name, even though we won't find out for a while. He throws him into the river to safety. The poor puppy, though, is not so fortunate. Look at that. That's horrible. Man, I love some of these Stan Sakai sound effects. Some of them are so cool looking. I think there was one I wanted to point out. Yeah, this one. I forgot to mention this. As the peasants are crossing the bridge, just this way it comes out at you. It's almost like 3D. I also wanted to mention, it's kind of weird. I think at this point, this comic came out in '88, this reprint. But Stan Sakai had already created Usagi Yojimbo at this point. And it's interesting because Usagi Yojimbo, the samurai rabbit, his sword is named Grass Cutter. So I wonder if it's because of Kamui. Because Stan Sakai reads Japanese, and I think he grew up reading manga. And so, he could have read all the old Kamui, because this was published before that, like the late 70s, early 80s. Just curious if he was inspired by that to name this sword Grass Cutter. So now, basically, at this point in the story, Utsuse takes Koyota under his wing. And as they're walking through the woods, Koyota hits this tripwire. These chimes ring, and these guys come out of the woods. They're peasants. And it does not look good for our two little heroes here. To be continued. Well, I should mention the ninja sequence here is Han and peasants. So this is talking about the whole sociological strata of Japan and where the peasants stood, and kind of interesting stuff. Here you have another crazy sketchy cover. And we got part 3 of Kusanagi. I think Kusanagi is that grass cutter technique. So these peasants are basically like, you're assassins sent by the damn samurai. And it looks like they're going to attack them. But then all of a sudden, that nameless samurai from earlier, the grass cutter guy, he comes out of the woods and says, "Cease. Besides, he's more than a match for any of you guys. So don't hurt him." He asks, the nameless samurai says, "What business do you have with me?" And the boy shows off his technique, the grass cutter style. It's so funny. It's almost like that drunken master kung fu It just looks like he's really clumsy and he's just falling over. But it's very effective. Once again, if it was a sword, he would have chopped off his foot. And the father says, "That technique, who taught you?" The little kid says, "My mother." "What was her name?" "Makuta. Sumi Makuta." And they basically have this joyful reunion. They're like, "You're my father. You're my son." And they hug. And all the peasants are kind of like, "Aw." Some nice art in these panels. Now we have a little interlude. We see this, I think, a ferret hunting fish, just for no good reason, except it's nice to see Shirato draw nature scenes. So the father has a heart-to-heart with Koyota. He asks about the mother. He tells his father that she died. And the father tries to explain why he left. He says, "I was a fool. I thought the way of the sword was everything. Recently, though, I realized that swordsmanship is only a means to an end. And since then, I've joined the peasants to fight for their cause, since I really don't have anything else in my life worth a damn." He says, "As soon as this rebellion's over, I want us to go home to the farm and, just have a nice, peaceful life together. We can catch up." And after Koyota falls asleep, the nameless samurai explains to Utsuse why the peasants are rebelling. Apparently there's a famine. The Han, the lord, they usually had spare rice in case there was a famine. But some corrupt officials sold the rice for gold. And so all the peasants were just starving. And they found out about this lord, one of the lords selling this rice. And of course it lit the powder keg and they went crazy. So in the middle of their conversation, Utsuse throws a sword into a tree. And we see a musket go off. And it's one of the samurai. And Utsuse runs him through with his sword. And then we see the samurai arrive. They've had enough of this peasant rebellion. Get ready for some epic shit, guys. This is awesome Kurosawa-ish stuff. And the samurai leads them into battle. Koyota is about to, follow him into battle. And Utsuse, who's up in a tree, he kind of lassos him and pulls him up to safety. He says, "Just watch the way your father fights. You're going to get killed if you go in there." And his father is just like a whirlwind of violence. He's just running through these guys. Well, I should say crawling through these guys, rolling around, just decimating them. Some great stuff. And it's only going to get better. Such a fun action stuff going on here. I love this. He's just running through them like a wheat thresher. Look at this shit. That is nuts. So just a lot of violence and gore. And then the battle's over. And we find out that the lords won and the peasants lost. All the peasants are tied together and marched through the forest. They start chopping off their heads. And they crucify the nameless samurai. Utsuse, using his ninja skills, basically figured out how to sneak in as a guard. To all intents and purposes, he looks like one of the samurai's guards, guard these prisoners. So he goes up to the nameless samurai and says, "You want me to help you escape?" And the guy says, "There's a musket ball in my gut. I'm dead anyway." And Utsuse asks him, "Why did you lie to the boy?" And he says, I couldn't let him chase an impossible dream, could I? Kyoto is allowed to talk to his father. And then this is the part I don't get. So he wanted to tell Kyoto that he was his father, so he'd stop looking for his father. But I guess now that he's dying, he admits to Utsuse, he says, I am not your father. Your real father's name is Juzo Makuta. He was my sword master. Ask Utsuse. He knows about your father. Utsuse looks shocked. And then the other guards come and kill the samurai. Some gory stuff going on here. And Utsuse takes off with Kyoto in a hot pursuit. Okay, now we got number 21. And another sketchy cover. But that's going to change soon. Part 4 of Kusanagi. This one, I'm such a sucker for this stuff. A lot of this is just very slowly paced. Look at this great opening panel of just this mountain. And basically Utsuse is running through this beautiful landscape, trying to catch up to Utsuse. Did I say Kyoto is trying to catch up to Utsuse? And Utsuse is kind of impressed with how scrappy the kid is. He's like, man. But he's not going to make it easy for him. It's tough ninja love. Just love all of this stuff. Look at that. It's almost breathtaking. He's stumbling down hillsides and falling into streams and rivers. He falls. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. It's like almost 4 a.m. I worked at my bar tonight where I do karaoke. And when I got home, I was like, I gotta finish this video. So that's why I keep yawning. I'll try to keep it to a minimum, though. So he falls into the river, into the rapids, and Utsuse finally shows up. I guess he's been like keeping an eye on the kid. He seems to like the kid. So we, helps him get out of the river. He's drying his clothes over a fire. And we have a page of young Kyoto all naked. This seems like Barry Blair from Aircell Comics would really like this page a lot. Actually, I think that guy's dead. But good riddance to bad rubbish. And they're hunting for their respective dinners. Frog and rabbit. The kid tells Utsuse that, when he finds his father, he'll do whatever he wants. If he wants to train him to be a swordsman, travel the land, that'll be great. If he wants to go settle down on a farm, he doesn't care. He just wants to be with his dad. And now we enter into a flashback. The little kid reminds Utsuse of himself when he was a little kid, when being raised by Fudo after his parents died. And we see Fudo on one of his secret assignments. And I guess was ordered to assassinate the samurai guy, which he does. So basically, Utsuse grew up with like blood and violence. He grew up learning how to be a ninja, basically, with Fudo's training. And we see here, basically every spare minute of the day was Fudo would train Utsuse in every kind of ninja skill. I really like these panels. Some fun stuff. He's really rough with them. I mean, he doesn't mollycoddle Utsetse at all. This is so great here. I don't know why, I just love this. Like, I see a lot of Joe Kubert in there. But this kid is, Utsese is he's tough. And so Utsese gets a little older. And Fudo realizes that he's ready for his first assignment. And now we cut away to, this is Makuta, Koyota's father. And he basically has his little squire with him. And these assassins pop up. He tells his squire to leave. And the assassins, they're from the Owari Yagyu. They confront him. I love how all these assassins have a different fashion and facial cast and everything. They're all very distinct. And so basically in the background, Fudo is with Utsuse, and he basically says, this is your target. It seems kind of crazy to me that your first mission as just a kid, your first ninja mission is to go after this amazingly formidable swordsman. But I guess the ninja don't play around. And it just seems like a lot of young ninja would have been killed on their first tryout, you know? So, as the issue ends, we see Utsuse take a battle stance. And we'll find out what happens next issue. Ninja Secrets has the mystique of the swordsman. This is kind of interesting. Talking about how, there's this romance of these guys, these great swordsmen, but a lot of them were just dirt poor. Because during the Tokugawa reign, Japan was united. There weren't many wars. So there was almost like too many swordsmen. So a lot of them had nothing to do. And nobody wanted to pay them to do nothing. So they were just kind of bums who were very skilled. So here we have the new cover format, guys. I basically they take a page from the issue and then crazily color it. There's some weird colors. Look at this. A little, I don't know, garish. But at least this has something to do with the interior of the comic. So here we have part 5 and the final part of Kusanagi. I love this 2-page spread. Something about it. So all these assassins are surrounding Makuta. So basically it seems like Utsuse is basically going to mop up, I'm sorry, not mop up, but basically let these guys all attack Makuta, and then he's going to attack him. It's almost like he's going to observe, see his technique and everything. It seems like these guys are all oblivious to these two. This is a really good action scene because it's almost like, this is like where it gets really super heroic, because we have this amazing swordsman, and then we have these amazing assassins all trying to fight him. So they're all very skilled. So it's a pretty great match. His squire is just crying and sweating and trembling with fear in the brush. And the fight begins. And Makuta is he's kicking their asses. So he's doing the grass cutter technique, chopping them off with the heels, rolling around on the ground. The whole time, Utsuse's just watching, just waiting for his moment. They all have different weapons. This is some really fun stuff. Really great fight scenes. Man, if I was a superhero cartoonist back in the 70s and 80s, nobody even knew about manga. Except for, I saw it. That one about Hiroshima. That was about it. I would have just ripped this shit off left and right. I guess you could say Frank Miller kind of did that. But even more blatantly, I would have swiped the shit out of this. Because these fight scenes are so much more thrilling than the superhero battles I saw in, Marvel 2-in-1 or something, Your average dopey superhero comic. Man, this is a long fight scene, and I don't want it to end. I like when he does these pages where the panels go like this, and then the big sweeping lower half. There's one big panel. All these guys are ending up footless, and quite a few of them are ending up headless. So Fudo is still saying, wait. Because all of a sudden, Makuta is just almost looks like he's swimming through the grass using his little grass cutter technique. Fudo says his sword is always hidden in the grass. Anyone who takes the offensive will surely be killed. There's no defense against attacks from below. But a strength at the same time can be a weakness. So he tells Utsetse to throw those ninja spikes all through the grass. I guess they're called makabishi. So as Makuta is rolling through the grass using his technique, all of a sudden he's kind of stymied. He can't, because everywhere he rolls, he finds these spikes. So they track him down, and they do this kind of piggyback attack. These 2 pages are awesome. I love this. And so the Fudo flips over him. They kind of clang swords. It's a stalemate. But while he's doing that, Utsetse leaps off his back and goes in for the kill. But Makuta staves off the attack temporarily. And then Utsetse finally takes his sword out and cleaves Makuta's skull. I love this little panel of this kind of wispy, sketchy drawing of him flipping away to the ground. That's a great one, too. Utsetse runs after the poor little squire trembling in the brush, and Fudo says, leave it. He's just a kid. He doesn't even have the guts to attempt revenge. So, you won't see him again. Don't worry about it. And Fudo is very proud of him. He says, you did a great job, but he also tells him, there's nothing more I could teach you. From now on, I'm no longer your father, and you are no longer my son. Of course, Utsetse is shocked. He says, in the future, our assignments may make us enemies. This is what it's like to be a ninja. If you ever have to go up against me, attack without hesitation, because I will do the same to you. I will show you no mercy. So it's pretty harsh. Living the La Vida Ninja. It's a very strict code of conduct. Very harsh code, I should say. And now we're back to the present with another beautiful landscape drawing. And Utsetse is sitting there with Koyota asleep in his arms. And he says, how ironic a man's fate can be. Because, I mean, it's a huge coincidence, the fact that he befriends this little kid. It turns out he killed his father. The Makuta guy. He killed him a long time ago. And he hears a stirring in the woods and he says, "Show yourself." And it's his ninja buddies. And they pass on some information to him. They say, "Go to a thatched hut in the Mitsubishi Kayara. Kamui's there." To be continued. So I guess their grudge match is going to continue next story arc. And they'll get to have a rematch. I assume. I hope that happens. So there you go, guys. Legend of Kamui, number 18 through 22. Just this series just keeps chugging along. I really dig it. And it's weird that I wasn't that thrilled by these when I bought them when I was in my 20s, when they were coming out. I guess, yeah, I was in my early 20s. I liked them enough to keep them all these years. So, but I don't know. I really appreciate them a lot more now. Maybe because I think I had read no manga at this point. This is the first manga I probably ever read. And even though I haven't read much manga, I have read some. And I definitely appreciate it more than I used to. I was one of those people, and to be honest, I still am a little, where, I'd look at manga and all those cartoony faces. I just couldn't get over it. And I'd just be like, I don't want to look at this shit. But I got over that, thankfully. And hope you like looking at this as much as I liked rereading it. And I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.